Welcome, welcome. Lot to talk about. We'll talk about the possibility of Republican civil war. I'll tell you why that doesn't mean that Donald Trump is any better of a person than very few of you probably thought he was. I'll take your questions. I'll tell you about what's going on the program tomorrow. What else? 400,000 subscribers. That's a big deal. And we have had actually the last 72 hours or so since we hit 400,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're almost at 402,000 already. We have seen the last 72 hours have been probably the biggest for us on YouTube over the last 2+ months, I would say. So that's good because there have been, there's been this thing going on, not the YouTube adpocalypse. Adpocalypse started at the end of March 2017, which crushed our revenue. But then the new thing has been this status called limited ads, when videos get limited. And in principle, there used to be two statuses for videos on YouTube. They were either monetized or they were not monetized based on the content. And some time ago, YouTube established this third status, which is ads are running, but there may be few ads. And what that translates to for most videos is no ads. Like strictly speaking, it's not demonetized, but just no ads run. And I am convinced that although officially that impacts impacts the revenue that a video makes, I am convinced that limited ads are also less discoverable and less likely to be recommended. Like if you're watching a Young Turks video or a Sam Seder video, it would be pretty common that a recommended video on the side would be a David Pakman Show video or a Kyle Kulinski video or whatever. I am pretty convinced, based on the numbers that we've been seeing over the last couple, up until a couple months ago where the recovery started, is that ad-limited videos are also less likely to be recommended by YouTube. So it's been all bad. I mean, really, I wish that there was some positive thing to talk about, but the only positive thing is we have had 72 really good hours on YouTube, and we had a really solid live stream on, now I don't even remember if it was Sunday or Monday evening, and a lot of people asked questions and contributed and all sorts of stuff. So anyway, we're trying to focus on the positive. And along those lines, I'll welcome you into the live stream if it's your first live stream. The live streams are live, as the name suggests, which means that, yes, if you ask questions or send comments through Super Chat or Streamlabs, I will be able to answer them for you. What am I talking about? Well, that's number 2. Super Chat is on. That's the $ at the bottom of the YouTube chat window. You can use it to send questions. I'll answer them. You can use it to send comments. I will read them and react to them. But just so you know, when you send a super chat, YouTube takes 30% of that revenue. If you send $1, they take 30 cents. There is a way to circumvent that, which is by using the top link in the live stream description, which goes to streamlabs.com/The David Pakman Show. Works the same way as super chat, but they take like 3%. Which is a lot less than 30%, that's for sure. New members and patrons will get live thank yous and shout outs during the live stream. Those two, respectively, are at davidpakman.com/membership and patreon.com/David Pakman Show. We've had a nice little uptick in patrons and Patreon dollars over the last 3 days. We're up to 1,958 patrons. And that's a fantastic thing. And Patreon is it's such a great platform. And they just actually released, this is very cool. Patreon just raised a bunch of money. And they are now, just yesterday, I think it was, or maybe today, I got an email. Hard to keep track when there's so much else going on. I think it was yesterday. Or maybe today, doesn't matter. They sent out an email to creators about new app integrations. Thanks, Gigantic. I'll get to your question momentarily. New app integrations where we can use Patreon to interface with our WordPress website to allow patrons access to certain pages that are for patrons only. Integrations with Patreon and MailChimp, which is the email system that we use. Anyway, a whole bunch of nerdy stuff that I think will be really good for you. So in any case, 1,958 patrons. I can assure you, if you make a Patreon contribution, you will be thanked by me on the live stream. And it would be great to get to 1,975 patrons. patrons is our target for today. That's only 17 of you. I think it is very, very doable. And lastly, please don't troll. Don't troll in the chat. People want to be here. They want to talk about politics. They want to talk about news. They want to talk about all sorts of different stuff that's going on. Don't troll. The trolling is bad. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. There are moderators monitoring the chat who have been deputized by me to get the trolling out. Okay, so that is that. Let me talk briefly about my thoughts on Republican Civil War. Throughout the week, we have been bringing you a variety of different stories related to Trump's battles with Republicans. John McCain has been going very hard against Donald Trump, very, very hard. And we can talk about McCain's politics, and I don't agree with a lot of his political positions, but he doesn't seem to be taking any BS from Donald Trump at this point. Donald Trump and Senator Bob Corker, a Republican senator, got into it earlier this week. We had a great clip that I think has close to 200,000 views at this point about that. And that is another intra-Republican battle that is going on. Jeff Flake took to the Senate floor rather, and the other Republican senator from Arizona, alongside John McCain, Jeff Flake said, I'm getting out. I'm not doing this anymore, and I'm getting out, and that's it, and it has to do with Donald Trump. So there's a few different thoughts about the implications of this Republican Civil War. The top line is Trump's never really been a Republican. And whether it's the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, Donald Trump doesn't really have a natural fit within the two-party duopoly because he doesn't really know anything about politics. He doesn't really know anything about so many of the areas that a president that an elected official needs to know about to even have clearly defined positions. And I've joked around a lot while we've been covering Donald Trump for the last 9 months at this point, plus the campaign. I've joked around, the guy doesn't really have a political philosophy other than greed and self-enrichment and self-aggrandizement and just kind of appearing to be the big man. So it's obvious that ultimately he was going to have a battle with the Republican Party. It would be happening with the Democratic Party. The difference is, and if I were a Republican insider, my concern would be not just Trump, but the fact that their electorate was stupid enough to be bamboozled into voting for Donald Trump, right? This was not an open seat where there were no Republicans running in the primary and Donald Trump just snuck in. Donald Trump defeated 16 other Republican candidates. Now, you could make the case that if there had been fewer Republican candidates, Donald Trump would not have been able to pick off enough support in the early primaries to stay in it and ultimately win. I don't know that I buy that. I genuinely don't know that I buy that because the non-Trump support could have consolidated around a Republican candidate as they dropped out, and it didn't happen. So if I'm a Republican, my concern isn't what's Trump going to do, although I would be concerned about that. And I would also be concerned about how is Trump going to impact my reelection chances in 2018 and in 2020. But I would be concerned about the fact that your voters, 80% of whom still support this guy, were so easily tricked. Drain the swamp, he's filling the swamp. He just decided not to deport a fugitive to China after finding out that the guy is a Mar-a-Lago member. He just set up a 10-minute briefing on a hurricane in Texas, even though the rest of the trip was all fundraising for re-election, in order to be able to get you, taxpayers, to pay for that trip and the air travel and all of the expenses associated with that trip. So there's been no draining of the swamp. There has been none of it. And if I am just somebody like Jeff Flake, who is a pretty hardcore Republican, not a guy I would agree with politically, I would be concerned that his voters were tricked so easily into voting for effectively a clueless con man with no knowledge of anything, period. Okay, so that's my thought on the Republican Civil War situation that may be building. Tomorrow on the Friday show, I will be talking about the 2020 census. Now, it sounds so boring, right? The census, David. The census could be nothing more boring. I've been talking about the census for years because the census is hugely important, and we are squarely on track to completely screw up the 2020 census, which has major implications for redistricting and gerrymandering, implications for how Thanks, Real Tubateer. I'll get to Super Chats and Streamlabs questions momentarily. The census is used to determine how federal funds should be distributed to all sorts of programs. Very long list. The census really matters. Number one, in 2010, Congress said the next census in 2020 can't cost any more than the 2010 census. In inflation-adjusted dollars or in nominal dollars? In nominal dollars. So just accounting for inflation, we would have a larger number of nominal dollars needed in 2020, but we also have a bigger population. We have a bigger population today than we did in 2010, and we'll have a bigger population in 2020 than we do today. And if you don't have more money when you have more people to count, you're going to have a bad time. And in addition to that, Donald Trump has cut census funding. The Census Bureau director quit. There's none right now. There's not even a nominee. A key aspect of a census running smoothly is that the Census Bureau has a director, and one has not even been nominated yet. So tomorrow on the program, I'm going to get deep into, and I'm seeing if I have a book here about this. I don't. I'm going to get deep into tomorrow on the program the upcoming shit show, as someone said in the chat, that the next census is scheduled to be. So prepare yourselves, because it's going to be bad, and it's going to be... most constituencies will be negatively affected by a crappy census. Some political interests will benefit from it, but not that many. Let's start with streamlabs.com/The David Pakman Show. Gigantic made a $5 contribution there. What are your thoughts on the Kyle Kulinski debate on the drunken peasants? You should go on a debate. Please stop paywalling Pat. I only saw about 90 to 120 seconds of Kyle's debate on the drunken peasants. And the 90 to 120 seconds that I saw so obviously exposed that Kyle was debating some clueless dude. I couldn't even tell you who the guy was. I have no idea how the debate came together. I mean, I know almost nothing. Just people tweeted it to me. I looked at 2 minutes and then said, Kyle's wiping the floor with this guy. I don't really need to watch any more of it. So, I'm always up for debating. As long as it makes sense, right? I mean, people write in and they say, David, I'm an incredibly articulate political debater and I want to debate you on your program. And I say, call in. And during live calls, and it's a disaster. Like, they can't even get a question out without face planting. So I'm willing to debate, but let's establish why we're debating. Let's establish what the parameters are, the topic, the duration, so that it doesn't become a mess. And Gigantic following up with a $2 Streamlabs contribution saying, type 1 in the chat if you want to see David debate people. Okay. So there's that, and people are free to type any number you want, really, but you're certainly allowed to type 1 if that's the number you like. Paul Leon has sent a $22 super chat with no comment. Paul, you are now the top contributor on today's live stream, and $22.01 is the challenge number that Paul has established. Thanks very much. Nick Kano 11 has sent a $2 super chat. Was Trump firing Comey an obstruction of justice? Listen, you're asking me a legal question, right? Obstruction of justice is really an issue of legality. I'm not a lawyer. What I can tell you is that Trump admitted the purpose of the firing was to get James Comey away from the Russia investigation. To me, colloquially speaking, that is trying to get in the way of the proper carrying out of justice. So I would say, in layman's terms, it absolutely was, Nick. The Real Tubateer has sent a $2 super chat. How do we get rid of the Electoral College? It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for a couple reasons. Number one, you can do it through a constitutional amendment. You need something like 2/3 of the House and Senate and 3/4 of the states to agree. Unlikely. However, there is another option, which is the National Popular Vote Interstate Complex. And what that is, if you get enough states, it's always hard to come up with a sentence to explain this. You need 270 electoral votes to become president of the United States. If you can get enough states together, which in total have 270 or more electoral votes, to agree that they will give their electoral votes to whoever wins the popular vote, not whoever wins their state, you effectively have a national popular vote. I think that that's a more direct path to abolishing the Electoral College than a constitutional amendment. Gangster Talk has sent a $5 super chat. You know, I'm curious. Anytime I hear the phrase gangster talk, I'm reminded of Elegant Elliot Offen from the Howard Stern Show, who's not been allowed on the Howard Stern Show because he's not allowed by SiriusXM security in the building after an outburst he had several years ago on the program. He used to always say gangster talk. So whenever I see that, I'm reminded of Elegant Elliot Offen. It'd be interesting to hear whether that's the reference. Anyway, the $5 super chat from Gangster Talk. Do you think the Young Turks has gotten a free pass on YouTube demonetization? I want to be super clear. I'm willing to answer this question, but I want to be absolutely clear. I have no inside information on this. I could not tell you whether the answer is yes or no. When I saw how quickly the Young Turks got ads back before anybody else had them, myself included, my instinct was that there must have been some kind of whitelisting of the Young Turks, but I have absolutely no independent knowledge of that whatsoever. I really couldn't tell you. So the answer would be it certainly seemed that way. Certainly seemed that way. Let me do a couple thank yous, okay? Membership is the #1 funding source for the David Pakman Show, and the way to sign up is at davidpakman.com/membership. Members get the bonus show. They get a daily commercial-free audio and video feed of the show. It's a very long, any number of member benefits are available. And we just had a new sign-up from David Mandel. David Mandel has signed up at davidpakman.com/membership, opting not to take advantage of the 40% discount code, which is I voted 17. You can take advantage of that if you want. Thanks very much to David. And I also have a new patron to thank. I want to thank David Bishop, who has signed up for $5 a month at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. We are now at 1,959 patrons, I believe. Or is that not right? We started the evening at 1958, and we're still at 1958, even though David made a pledge. We must have lost somebody. Gee, that's depressing, isn't it? Jeez, we're trying to grow the number. Somebody just canceled their patronage. That is seriously depressing, folks. That I can tell you for sure. Okay, so in any case, more thank yous upcoming. Hopefully more thank yous upcoming. We have another streamlabs.com/The David Pakman Show contribution. It is from 280Z Turbo, who says, any plans to have Sam Seder on the show? I'm a big fan of both of you guys. You know, I was just hanging out with Sam in Las Vegas last week. Had a great time. And there's no particular plans. You know, the thing is, Sam and I on each other's shows, we've done it before. It's not a great fit because we both have similar roles on our programs where I think it's much better for us to be interviewing experts in some particular field or academics or whatever. When we interview each other, I don't think it's that interesting. Although I would be interested in talking with Sam about his battle with Jimmy Dore that's going on, okay? And I am going to be addressing, people have been writing in saying, David, are you taking a side in the Sam Seder versus Jimmy Dore battle within the left, as some are calling it, that's taking place? And I am not neutral on that. I don't want to suggest for a moment, let's dispel this notion, to take a page from Little Marco Rubio, a phrase from Little Marco Rubio. I am going to be, probably next week during our audience questions segment, I am going to be dispelling the notion that I am even remotely neutral on Sam Seder versus Jimmy Dore. I'm anticipating a total shit show. I know from looking, Sam has a comment on his channel from yesterday or today where he addressed this issue, and it is getting disliked to oblivion. And I think that no matter which side of the issue, of the battle I come down on, half people aren't going to like it. And I am ready to do that. I am not going to be staying neutral on this. And that's next week. That is next week. Unless someone sends, like if someone were to send a crazy super chat amount, like if someone sent a $250 super chat, maybe I would address right now which side of that I'm on. But, you know, we plan the show out, some elements of the show ahead of time. And that is planned for next week. So only a major, just like an obscene Streamlabs or Super Chat contribution or getting to 2,000 patrons tonight would get me to discuss that today. Okay, Gigantic has sent a $1 Streamlabs contribution, and he wants me to answer a question that he has asked in Spanish. And for people who don't know, Gigantic, who sometimes goes by the name Clarth, or sometimes David's girlfriend, or sometimes I think Louis Matamati, Natan Pacman. Gigantic has a lot of usernames. He asks questions in Google Translated Spanish, and they're always grammar abortions. And then I have to struggle through it and then translate it to English. So here's his question. ¿Dónde están tus fidget spinner desafíos? Where are my fidget spinners? The fidget spinner sort of events or things I had planned. The fidget spinner is right here, but I don't have anything planned for it right now. Quería decir que soy de Australia, pero no podría, which means I wanted to say I'm from Australia, but I would not be able to. Again, weird translation from Google Translate. El problema es, pues, Pat es mi ídolo y lo quiero. ¿Piensas que me quiera también? Estaba pensando que quiero sentir... Okay, this is getting very, very graphic. Gigantic, apparently, Pat is Gigantic's idol, and he loves Pat, and he wants sexual relations with Pat. So I'm not able to help, which was the main question there. Those should really cost more than $1. I don't know how that got in there for $1. Christina sent a $1 Streamlabs contribution. What did you make for dinner after the last live stream? I don't remember. I don't remember what I made for dinner after the last live stream. But tonight, I made a lemon pepper chicken with broccolini and sweet potatoes, and it was delicious. It was delicious and nutritious. That I can say for sure. Okay. I'm all distraught by that Spanish Pat-loving Streamlabs contribution. I don't even know. I had a whole agenda, and I don't even know where to go next here. Okay, where did I want to go next? Okay, the Race and IQ video. The Race and IQ video has been fully pre-produced, okay? I'm recording narration for the Race and IQ video tomorrow. I've been trying to get to it this week. It's just been insanely busy. And I will be recording it tomorrow. And then segment producer Noah Ferguson is going to be doing the editing on it. And then we will slot it in to our within the interview schedule. It's probably going to be a two-parter because I anticipate it'll be anywhere from 20 to 25-ish minutes long. So we'll probably do it in 2 parts on the broadcast show and put the Race and IQ video on YouTube all in one piece for everybody. So that is upcoming for people wondering about that. Gangster Talk sent a $2 super chat. Where you turned by the transgender Playboy Playmate. I'm going to interpret this as, was I turned on by the transgender Playboy Playmate? I don't know anything about a transgender Playboy Playmate. I canceled my Playboy subscription when I was 8 years old. I only subscribed to it up until I was 8. And then I canceled because the articles just got not as good. So I couldn't tell you anything about it, Gangster Talk. I don't know what... I don't know. Is that even true? Does anybody know? There was a transgender Playboy Playmate. I don't know a thing about it. But I don't know. I guess it's an interesting story. I'm guessing if true, that would be the first transgender Playboy Playmate. Although maybe not. I don't know. I don't know what the history of that story is, as you can probably tell. Also on tomorrow's Friday program, we will be answering questions about cryptocurrency and whether I have any judgment on people who buy cryptocurrency, but I buy cryptocurrency. So if I'm judging people who buy it, I'd have to judge myself, and I do that all the time, so that's possible. I'm going to talk tomorrow in a little more detail than we have over the last few weeks, and there was a story today related to this. What can be done to prevent mass shootings? What can be done to prevent individual gun homicides and gun deaths? What types of things would work? What types of things wouldn't work? That's going to be on tomorrow's Friday program. And also, I have a really good Cenk Uygur story. I don't think I've told this story before publicly, But I was asked an audience question, which we will answer tomorrow, which was, if I'm in a coffee shop or a library or in a public place, if someone says, hey, can you watch my laptop for a second? Or can you watch my stuff for a second? Am I willing to do it? And I will answer that, but I also have a really good Cenk Uygur, host of the Young Turks, story related to being asked to watch other people's stuff. I'll be telling that tomorrow on the Friday show, but hint, hint, peek behind the curtain. If you want access to the Friday show now and you want to hear the Cenk Uygur story, just become a member, because the member show will be uploaded early before the Friday show goes public. So check that out, davidpakman.com/membership. Okay, other questions. The Real Tubateer, $2. What's going on with U.S. relations with Ukraine? I have no idea. I have not been following it. But it would be very interesting, because we've seen we've seen the change in the relationship with Russia, I guess, under Donald Trump, although to describe it as a change in the relationship is almost weird. But how has that impacted the relationship with Ukraine? I don't know the answer, and I'm going to make a note of that topic because it is an interesting one. Making a note. And I will look into it for you. Over at streamlabs.com/The David Pakman Show, Yesenia Moreno has sent a $1 question asking, am I going to interview voters during the midterm elections? Yeah, so we don't do too much man on the street stuff where I go out and talk to voters. The last time we did it was, I think, during the primaries. Yeah, because on election day we were in studio broadcasting live. So I think on the day of the Massachusetts primary in 2016 and the New Hampshire primary, I interviewed voters, and it was interesting, I think. And we don't do that too much. So the question is, will I be doing it during the midterm elections? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I do think it would be very interesting to ask voters specifically, was your vote today influenced by the presidency of Donald Trump? In other words, are you voting because Trump is president and you normally don't vote? If you're voting for Republicans, how was your vote influenced by Trump, et cetera? So I think that that's an interesting idea, Yesenia, and we should do it. We should do it, and we'll try to line it up, or at least get some correspondence out on the street talking to voters, because I have many questions for voters, particularly for the 35-ish% that still support Donald Trump. So yeah, we're going to try to do that. Impeach Trump has sent a $2 New Zealand super chat with no question or comment. How much is $2 New Zealand to US dollars? I don't know what the exchange rate is. It's $1.37 US. All right. I had no clue what the relative exchange rate was for New Zealand dollars. Over at streamlabs.com/The David Pakman Show, David Bishop has sent a $2 contribution saying, can you say, I love the fake podcast, David's awesome. Also, love the show, glad to be a new patron. Well, I said it. I don't know if the fake podcast is your podcast, David, but you got me to say it. Congratulations. Gigantic has sent a $3 streamlabs.com/The David Pakman Show contribution. Thoughts on whether Bernie Sanders can still win the 2016 election? H.A. Goodman says he can still win. That's clever. That's very, very clever. I have no clue whether this is true. H.A. Goodman doesn't like me, and I've interviewed H.A. Goodman, and after I called him out for, you know what, I don't even remember what it was. I think it was something relating to that Seth Rich conspiracy theory. He did like 10 videos about me. It was crazy. Every day he was streaming. I did one video about the guy and then one sort of follow-up responding to him. And he must have done 8 or 10 videos. He was talking about me on live streams. It was very weird. He became strangely fixated with me. Someone wrote to me the other day and told me that Tim Black has had a separation from H.A. Goodman because H.A. Goodman came out as a Trump supporter. I am being very clear. I have no clue if that's true. A viewer told me that, and it struck me as odd, and then I realized I don't even care enough to Google it. But if that's true, that's very, very odd and interesting. Very, very strange. Gangster Talk has sent a $2 super chat. Trump diddled me at 13. He should be impeached. Listen, it seems that he has sexually harassed many women, so if that's true, I encourage you to contact the authorities. I personally don't find it super funny to joke about sexual assault, particularly when there's already so much stigma and so many people that are unwilling to report sexual assault that they've suffered. So it's not something I would joke about. Nick Matsikato has sent a $5 super chat. How do we fight the border wall and support immigration reform? The process needs streamlining. How do we fight the corrupt TSA? Okay, last part first. I have no idea how to fight the TSA. I don't know as much about TSA corruption. I know about TSA impotence. 95% of banned items that are attempted to be snuck by the TSA in internal tests of their methods get by. Out of every 20 test items that they try to get by, 19 get by. It's not great, okay? How do we fight the border wall? Have you been paying attention? I don't know that the border wall is close to happening. Unless I've missed some news in the last 2 hours, the border wall that supposedly Mexico is going to pay for is not exactly moving forward quickly, okay? So I don't know that I would do too much. Now, immigration reform is a more complicated one. And, I at the base level, we've got to elect the people that have the views we agree with on immigration reform, but it's much more complicated than that, particularly with all the special interest groups that are involved. Raymond McCabe has sent a $2 super chat. What are your thoughts on Congressional Dish podcast by Jen Briney? Very good podcast. I've interviewed Jen many times. She hasn't been on for a while. We should have her back. She has a podcast called Congressional Dish, and she breaks down bills that are actually being proposed and sometimes passed by the House and Senate. She's very good. Good podcast. I can say that for sure. Okay. Any Ghost has sent a $20 super chat. Thank you very much. Not super chat, Streamlabs contribution. How closely do you agree with the views of Noam Chomsky, and do you ever worry, as I do, that there will be nobody of commensurate knowledge, sophistication, and insight to fill his shoes when he dies? I am not a Chomsky fanboy, personally, and there's a little bit, people like to talk about the split on the left, like Sam Cedar battling Jimmy Dore, but there is, and that's, I'll talk about that, as I said, next week. Unless we get some major super chat demanding I address that this week. I have never been a Chomsky ultimate fanboy, and there are people in the audience who are. I think that Noam Chomsky has very interesting things to say about the effect of media on culture, and his analyses of media in many ways I find very, very interesting. I don't think it'll come as a surprise to many in the audience that I am not completely aligned with Noam Chomsky's views on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I do believe that he has a lot of very valuable things to say on lots of issues, but I've never become part of the Chomsky sort of cult of personality the way some other people have. Brian has sent a $1 Streamlabs contribution. Any books you'd recommend that give a good overview of economic theories? Many books. So I've said before that I think it's useful to start learning economics as if neoclassical, Chicago school, Keynesian, rational actor, efficient markets hypothesis economics were completely accurate, okay? Because in order to understand critiques of that economic theory, I think it's important to understand what is the sort of idea of how economics work in most economics departments at universities and colleges around the country. So, and some people might be shocked by this, check out Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics. Thomas Sowell is a I don't want to unfairly characterize him, but basically a right-wing economist. I don't know that I want to call him a supply-sider necessarily, but certainly what we would consider a right-wing economist. But I still think it's a good idea to start with Basic Economics because it at least tells you what the standard is that some people pretend is the reality of economics. You can read Keynesian stuff and read Milton Friedman and that type of material. Then, what about reading a little bit of Marx, right, to find out an alternative theory? And I am not a Marxist. I've made that clear, but I think it's useful to read Marx. You don't really need to read Das Kapital. You can read summaries, you can get cliff notes, you can get a very short introduction to Marxism if it exists. I assume it does in the very short introduction series, which is excellent, by the way. I mean, excellent, excellent series. I just bought the very short introduction to rhetoric and I have a couple others on my list that I want to read. And then start to dig into critiques of standard economic theory. You can get books by Richard Wolff, my former economics professor. I think he has a book, let me just tell you for sure. Yeah. Richard Wolff has a book that he wrote along with Stephen Resnick, who sadly has passed away, dynamic duo of economics professors at the University of Massachusetts, both formerly. Stephen Resnick because he passed away a few years ago, Wolff because he retired and now teaches at the New School. They have a book called Marxian versus Neoclassical. So after you've read some neoclassical and you've read some Marx, now you can actually read a comparison of the two. And then read some behavioral economics. Read Daniel Kahneman. Read Dan Ariely. And those are related to economic theory to different degrees, but they will make you understand that the entire rational actor farce that standard economics teaches us is bogus. And I would also recommend, I just finished it yesterday, and I'm going to be recommending it on the program tomorrow, Irrational Exuberance by Robert Shiller. It's not a general economics book. It deals specifically with bubbles and stock markets and housing bubbles and housing markets, but it really does a lot to explain to us that the efficient market hypothesis is an absolute and total myth, and that's part of neoclassical economic theory. So I think that would be useful to read as well. David Bishop has sent a $2 Streamlabs contribution. What are your thoughts on the foreign policy expansion among the left and the isolationism that seems to be taking over the Republican Party because of alt-right nationalist ideology? This question requires a lot of defining of terms, but let me say generally, I am not in favor of or against foreign policy decisions merely because they conform or break from a general ideology like isolationism or like neoliberal spreading of democracy or whatever, right? So I tend to take a much more pragmatic approach and one that typically falls more in the middle. I don't believe that extreme isolationism makes sense. I don't believe that the United States is, can be, or should be the policeman of the world. I think that we live in an interconnected world, a smaller and smaller world because of globalization, and I think that there are no simple answers when we say the U.S. should never get involved unless we're about to get nuked, right? That would be an extreme isolationist view. Or anywhere that there's a humanitarian crisis, if the U.S. has the ability and resources, the U.S. should get involved. I don't believe that either, right? So I think that we really need to look at individual foreign policy decisions first, and then think about the broader context in which we would be making those decisions. 280Z Turbo has sent a $2 Streamlabs contribution. Will Senators Corker, McCain, and Flake cause older, traditional conservatives to reconsider Trump? I feel like many older religious Republicans were never into all of that alt-right nonsense, but it's really hard to get them to question authority. I hope so. I don't know the answer to that. I hope that that the movement away from some of these by some of these Republicans does get voters to reconsider, but they voted for Trump. They fell for Trump and voted for him, so they don't strike me as the most nuanced and rational people already. Gangster Talk has sent a $2 super chat. Do you think Howard Stern sucks now? I was just talking about this with some friends who are also fans of Howard. Do I wish Howard was doing more than 3 shows a week with like 20 weeks of vacation a year? Yes, I do. Do I think the show is worse now? I don't care for some of these fluffier interviews with A-list celebrities. I don't find them interesting, and I think that there's no question. A lot of the people Howard is now interviewing are the people that 15 years ago he would have been making fun of. Okay, so that I am not a fan of, and I think has been a decline in the Howard Stern show. At the same time, Howard has been way more direct about what are, on most issues, not guns, but on most issues, pretty progressive politics. And it's alienated some of his viewers, but that I actually like. I actually do like that. So Does Howard Stern suck now? I wish that there were more. I love the phony phone calls, song parodies. I wish that there was still more of that. I haven't been hearing Richard and Sal on the program nearly as much. Where's Beetlejuice been? I have a lot of. Actually, Beetlejuice was on not that long ago, but it's a different show. It's constantly changing. When I started listening when I was like 12 on the way to school, when my mom would drive me to middle school, it was a different program. Actually, no, I had a bus to middle school, so it must have been when I was 14 in high school. But yeah, programs change over time. The David Pakman Show has changed over time. Olivia Vengata has sent a $10 super chat. How can Hatriot Mail contain both the types of errors that a speech-to-text program might make, in other words, Parkman and is of co-host, and also spelling errors like Argentina that could only be from an email? I never even considered that some of the errors were a result of the use of speech-to-text programs. So I can't really answer the question. I don't know. I don't know how that. I can't answer it because I never considered it. Raymond McCabe has sent a $2 super chat. Pasty, Zildjian, Sabian, or other. I guess you're asking about symbols. And what is your favorite drumstick? Okay, I think I actually have. I'll just grab my favorite drumstick right here. Hold on. This right here is my default. Wait a second, what are these? This is not my favorite stick. Okay, I do like these. These are good. These are Japanese oak ProMark sticks. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus on that. Not really. It's a 5A, okay? I usually play an extreme 5A. The 5B is way too heavy for me. Don't like the 5B. So I typically play an extreme 5A, Vic Firth extreme 5As. But these white oak, Japanese oak rather, ProMark sticks, I really like, and I've had them for a while. I only use these on the practice pads, so the tips are still fine. Other than this one that seems to be going flat. So these should probably go in the trash. But typically, so I really like these. And then if I'm playing jazz, I like the Vader 7A, which is a very thin stick, and it also has a round tip. And I like that one. So those are usually the sticks I go with. Kittercat Nia, or Naya, has sent a $5 super chat. What is your opinion on libertarian socialist ideologies? I don't know that much. Libertarian socialism. I know about socialism and I know about libertarianism. Let's see. Libertarian socialism is a group of anti-authoritarian political philosophies inside the socialist movement that reject socialism as centralized state ownership and control of the economy. That's difficult because depending on what definition of socialism and communism you're using, socialism is not state-run. Socialism would suggest public-owned enterprises and control of the economy, whereas communism would be state-run. So I think the definition is already dubious. I have not really looked into it before. So I'll check it out and see what I can find out about it. Let's do a couple thank yous. Patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Patrick Stallsmith has just pledged $5 a month. Patrick is now what we call what do we call Patrick? Nothing bad. A double play, a double threat. He is now both a member and a patron, and I really appreciate that, Patrick, very, very much. Help us get to 2,000 patrons. And by the way, I want to mention this, and I'll get to member thank yous in a second. When we get to 2,500 patrons, we are going to be producing, I'm looking for the right word, they've been created, but I guess turning into videos, my 75-minute long-form lectures for my class at Boston College that I'm teaching. There's 12 long-form lectures, not all of which I've given. The semester's not over. People have expressed a lot of interest in turning those lectures on critical thinking and epistemology and media literacy into YouTube videos. It's a lot of work. We're talking about, 15 hours or more of video. Once we get to 2,500 patrons at patreon.com/David Pakman Show, we're going to do that. Help me grow the number of patrons. If you are somebody who has been joining the live streams over the months and throwing in a couple bucks here or there, consider just throwing in $1 a month on Patreon. I'm really not asking for a lot of money. What we are trying to do is get a lot of patrons, because the more patrons we have, the more likely it is that Patreon will feature us on their front page and include us in their email blast about campaigns, publishers you can support. And it really is a small thing. We've surveyed the audience. We know that most of the audience can do $1 a month, and I don't need most of the audience to do it. I've said it before, if we can get just 3 or 4% of our audience to make a contribution at patreon.com/David Pakman Show, we basically no longer have to mention financial need ever again. So if anybody else wants to throw in a buck, please do. I will thank you profusely in just minutes. And on that note, a couple new members that I do want to thank as well. Debbie Walker has signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you so much. Leroy Chen has signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. Nick Gonzalez and Phil Forbes have also signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. Thank you. Thank you to all of you for signing up. Membership and Patreon are major funding sources, major funding sources for the David Pakman Show, and I really appreciate that. All right, we've got more Super Chats and Streamlabs contributions coming in. Let's go first to Streamlabs. What do we have on Streamlabs? I think some of our friends are coming in here. Let's see. Where are we? Eric Patterson sent a $25 Super Chat with apologies for earlier today. I don't know what Eric is referring to. Maybe I need to go through my email or tweets or Facebook or Reddit or something. $25, the new high watermark for a single contribution for today. Sean Keogh, I think is the name it's pronounced, $1 Streamlabs.com contribution. Hey, David, do you think we're overdue for a recession? From what I understand, our economy has several bubble markets, including student loans, real estate, and stocks. Richard Wolff and others have said we had 6 to 18 months. Oh, boy. I am usually very careful about talking about stuff like this because I really believe that, in general, economic predictions are not worth that much. But the truth is, I do agree. And I'm going to be talking about this tomorrow on the program because I'm going to be recommending Robert Schiller's book, the third version of Irrational Exuberance, first published in the year 2000. Second edition came out sometime thereafter. Third edition came out in 2014, 2015. He says, and I believe, and I hope that I'm wrong, that the housing market is significantly overvalued and in a bubble in the United States, that the stock market, despite Donald Trump's cheering that we're at 23,000 on the Dow, is overvalued and in a bubble. And here's why I'm so conflicted about talking about this. I do not believe as an investment strategy in timing the market. My strategy is and has been for a very long time, since I was in high school and was trading small amounts of individual stocks and losing money by continuing to pay trade commissions. I believe that the best investing strategy is one where you are dollar cost averaging, contributing to mutual funds, the lowest possible cost mutual funds through either Vanguard or Betterment, on a regular basis with total disregard for the value of the market. That being said, I do believe that we're in a bubble, and I think that Richard Wolff is right that there are 6 to 18 months. Tom Hartman for a while had been saying that in 2016 there was going to be a major crash. And at the time when he started talking about that, I wasn't convinced. And now I feel that it is very likely that there is going to be a crash in the next 6 to 18 months. Now, the one thing just to keep in mind, if you are someone who just dollar cost averages in, is that when there are declines in the stock market, when share prices go down, the $100 you might be contributing buys you more shares, and the dividends that you get from those mutual funds buy you more shares, so that eventually, when hopefully the market goes back up, although that is not guaranteed ever, you then have more shares that can appreciate. But we're kind of digging deep here. But you know what, Sean? Yeah, I generally do agree with that. The most expensive ES Tutor has sent $1 streamlabs.com/the David Pakman Show contribution in Spanish. Again, hola otra vez, hello again. Debes saber que me humilles cuando dices que mis traducciones son abortos. So I'm going to translate, if I translated this literally, it would be horrific, but I'm going to tell you what he means is that I should know that he gets ashamed when I call his translations abortions. Estaba practicando por mucho tiempo. I've been practicing for a long time. No piensas que esto es una clase muy cara. Don't you think this is a very expensive class? Gasté más que $99.99 por las clases de español y las pat fantasías sexuales. So he spent more than $100 for Spanish classes and for pat sexual fantasies. Okay. TDPS Historian has sent a $2 Streamlabs contribution. I saw you paid a Finnish composer guy for a new show theme on Patreon. When do we get to hear it? I have no clue what you're talking about. I've never paid any Finnish composers that I'm aware of, and I've never paid for anything to be composed for the show. And I don't know how I would pay for the theme on Patreon, or if you're saying you saw news about that on Patreon. I don't know what you're talking about, but it doesn't ring a bell at all. Doesn't ring a bell at all. Eric Patterson has sent a $10 Streamlabs contribution. If I remember correctly, you identify as agnostic. What evidence would you require to become a theist? Not meaning religious, only theistic. What evidence would I need? Here's the thing. I am willing to be convinced that there is a deity if I am presented with that evidence. I've never thought hard about exactly what that evidence would be. Sometimes people say, if God moves stars around to spell out, this is God, believe in me, then I would believe that there is a God. And that's not my idea, and I'm not saying that that's what I would need. I should think about that. I want to be super clear. My answer is not, I would never change my mind and believe that there is a literal God. That's not my answer. I would if I was presented with evidence. I've never thought truly hard about what that evidence would have to be. But it seems like a valuable endeavor. Seems like something that would be worth thinking about. 280Z Turbo has sent a $5 Streamlabs contribution. Any plans for a long-form piece on MMT? I'm a former librarian still trying to wrap my head around the idea of the national debt being irrelevant. Oh, MMT is, what kind of money theory is that? Modern monetary theory. Yeah, so modern monetary theory suggests that the government basically cannot become insolvent because the debt effectively doesn't matter and the government can just always print more money, and even if it's devalued, you're never really going to end up without, you're not going to end up insolvent. Yeah, it's an interesting topic. It's more niche than some of the other topics we've dealt with, but I'd be willing to look into that. TDPS Historian has sent $1 saying, you didn't pay for this? And here is a link. Patreon link. Let's see what this is. I'm genuinely curious. David Pakman Show intro song sneak peek audio posted on April 8th. What? I don't even remember what this is. Unlock it now. We're going to listen to it together. Let's see. Let me get signed in to Patreon. I'm so curious what this is. Give me a second here. Did I pay for this? I don't know. Oh boy, now I've got to get authenticated on Patreon. This is going to take longer than I expected, but I listen, this is worth it because I want to know what this is. Verifying my device here. And let's see what this theme song is. Yeah, there is a post there called Sneak Preview. Now I have to log in again. I couldn't possibly tell you why. Man, this is taking forever. Let's see. What is that? Sneak preview of, let me turn my volume up to see if we can all hear it. Oh, wait a second. This is not one of my posts. Now I'm so confused. I see. This is someone else has posted a, on their page. I was so confused. Someone has posted on their Patreon something that they are calling sneak peek audio of the David Pakman Show song intro that they are charging people for. I've never paid for any music for the show. And in fact, we have two new possibilities for show music that I'm looking at right now that we might be using, and we're not paying for any of it. People have offered to donate it. So it's possible that this person offered to make us a song or something like that, but we've not paid for any music, and there's no plan for whatever that is, although I can't hear it because it's locked. I don't know what that is, but I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you, but that's not going to be the theme song. Yesenia Moreno has sent a $1 Streamlabs contribution. Can you bring the Hatriot Male voice guy on the show? The agreement with the Hatriot Male voice guy is, because he's a professional TV, radio, and movie narrator, the arrangement with him is he'll do Hatriot Mail for us, but we can never mention who it is because his clients don't necessarily know his political leanings. And as a result, he doesn't want it to be known that he's this super progressive who loves the David Pakman Show. And so the agreement is we can't identify him. Now, maybe he would be willing to be interviewed with no video or something like that. That might be interesting. But I think he'd be worried that his voice, he's doing a voice for Hatriot Mail. He might be worried. If I were him and I didn't want to be discovered, I'd be worried that people would figure out who he is if he used sort of like his normal voice. We have a few new patrons to mention that are really great people. Yesenia Moreno has made a $2 a month pledge at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Thank you, Yesenia. Thank you so much. Very much appreciated. Linda Irene Crombie has pledged $2 a month at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Thank you, Linda. That wasn't too painful, was it? Debise has made a $2 a month pledge at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Thank you as well. I really, really appreciate that. We have nearly 2,000 people who are now contributing on a monthly basis on Patreon. We're not asking for much. Even just $1 makes a big difference. So let's keep those coming in. Christina has sent $1. I was planning on wrapping up at 10 p.m. Eastern in 3 minutes, but we've got so many messages. I can't leave if there are questions on Super Chat, right? I mean, the people have paid after all. Christina has sent $1 Streamlabs contribution. Do you celebrate Christmas in a secular way? No, I don't. I'm Jewish, and even though religiously I don't have religious beliefs, culturally and ethnically I identify with Judaism. But and if you, by the way, if you saw my DNA test, I did a DNA test, 2 of them actually, and brought on a DNA expert to analyze my DNA. He said I was the most Jewish person whose DNA he's ever even heard of, something like 97% Ashkenazi Jewish DNA and 3% noise. That might be nothing at all. So no, I do not celebrate Christmas in a religious nor secular way. The holiday season's fine. I mean, it's very cold here in New England, and I do like, you've got a couple days off. We usually take the last week of the year off altogether. So even though I don't celebrate Christmas, there's that nice period between Christmas, which is a federal holiday, religious holiday, federal holiday, establishment of religion. Anybody? We take that week off between Christmas and New Year's, usually depending on kind of how the days fall. And news about that for this year, upcoming. No full decision made yet. Terry Greer has sent a $10 super chat with no question or comment. Well, thanks very much. I appreciate that. Gangster Talk has sent a $2 super chat. Who's got a bigger penis? You or Kyle Kulinski? We've never compared, so I really couldn't say. I've hung out with Kyle a few times, and we've gone to dinner, and, we've gotten coffee, and we've talked about many, many things, but it might be shocking to you, but penis size has never come up. Brian Rasmussen, $5 super chat. How do you feel about Lawrence O'Donnell since he leaked his breakdown? Yeah, so for people who don't know, Lawrence O'Donnell, MSNBC host, a video leaked, and who knows where it came from, and if you're saying since his leaked breakdown, I see. I assume that a lot of the people in corporate media are exactly what you would imagine them to be, right? The Bill O'Reilly let's do it live thing, Lawrence O'Donnell losing his shit because of some kind of hammering noise that was going on or something that was wrong with his papers or earpiece or I don't know what it was. I get the frustrations when technology doesn't work well when you're trying to do a show. I mean, we've all experienced it, particularly in independent media, but not exactly the best look. Barry Bostwick has sent a $2 super chat. Why doesn't vegan producer Pat say much anymore? You know, Pat, we have just recently scaled up the technical production of the show. You might have noticed that now almost every story, in addition to just having clips and images that we cut to, we've got B-roll video that plays while we're talking. We've added social media elements to the daily program production. A whole bunch of stuff has been thrown at Pat very recently, and we have limited time for prep for the show in the morning. So for the time being, Pat has been focusing his efforts on those technical improvements, and we still hear from Pat on the bonus show. Pat will chime in during live calls whenever he wants. Pat will chime in during audience questions when he wants, and voicemails when he wants, etc. But the amount of work for Pat during some other portions of the show has increased dramatically, and we don't want to overload Pat. Right? So Pat's there, and our members are very, very aware of that, and he'll be on the Friday program tomorrow, and we'll hear some of his opinions about the questions that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, Pat is doing well, and he's there, and it's great to have him in studio every day. Yesenia Moreno has sent $1 Streamlabs contribution at streamlabs.com/The David Pakman Show, asking, are you going to do more cooking videos? I want to do more cooking videos. They require quite a bit of editing and production and setup, so it's a lot of work, and we're just so busy with a million different things right now that it's been tough to get that done. I do want to do some live stream coffee making. I just got new bags of David Pakman Show coffee, and it is fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic. The coffee is available at davidpakman.com/gear, and it is roasted very close to Boston by Patrick at Blue Fire Coffee Roasters. We've got an espresso blend, we've got a drip coffee blend, and the bags are flying out of here. Not here, but out of Blue Fire Coffee Roasters. And I do want to do some demos. I want to do a Chemex and French press demo with the a drip coffee blend, and then I want to throw some of the espresso into my espresso machine and do a couple videos there. Those I think will be easier to produce than the cooking videos. So I should do that, and I'm looking forward to doing that, hopefully sooner than later. Paul Leon has sent a $5 super chat with no question or comment. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate that, Paul. Very, very much appreciated. All the contributions are very much appreciated. And we have, I believe, one other contribution that just came in. It's kind of hard to know sometimes whether these are coming in. Oh, yeah. Purple Haze 09 sent a $5 question. Not sure if you saw my Reddit question about witnessing the end of the Republican Party as we know it. Do you think that Trump could be the best thing that could happen to the Republican Party by bringing out the best in them, or is it just a blip? I will go back to my comment at the beginning of the stream, which was, the problem for Republicans, even if some elected officials start to wake up to the insanity of Trump, is that their voters were dumb or indifferent enough or bad enough people to be bamboozled into voting for Donald Trump. And that's not something you're going to fix by a few Republican senators coming out against Donald Trump. TDPS Pat has sent a $1 contribution. Boss, I'll do a vegan cooking video. Count on me. Okay, very good. I assume that was our normal Spanish speaker. Yesenia Moreno, how is the lawsuit going? Very good. We were threatened with a lawsuit. This is going to be my last major story for tonight. We were threatened with a lawsuit for the use of a picture 2 years ago, 4 months ago. So in other words, the lawsuit threat came in maybe 3-4 months ago, and it was for the use of a picture in July of 2015. $5,000 was demanded from us in a totally formulaic letter. And it was from a law firm that churns these out. And we spoke to a number of lawyers about it. They were asking for $5,000. They were threatening to sue us for $150,000. And I can now report to you that we have settled the case for a few $100. Okay? And the fact that it was settled for a few $100 confirms to me that there was a lot of fear-mongering going on, but that there was really no good chance of collecting anything close to that amount of money. Because if you are asking for $5,000 and threatening a $150,000 lawsuit based on triple damages, on statutory malicious copyright infringement, why would you go away for a few $100 after I force them by corresponding with email after email after email to invest endless hours of attorney time into dealing with me? So I would call it a success. And the reason I even offered any money was that our attorneys that I spoke to said, listen, David, you can fight this and there's a good chance that you could win it. The problem is if you get sued in federal court for copyright infringement, you're probably not going to want to represent yourself and the risk is too great. Try to settle it for a few $100. So even though I've admitted to no guilt or wrongdoing, I have settled. And we were able to pay a few $100 and make a threat of a $150,000 lawsuit go away. Gangster Talk has sent a $2 super chat. Could you beat Kyle Kalinske in a fist fight? Couldn't tell you, don't plan to find out. Luca Blight, 69, sent a $5 super chat. Don't always agree with you politically and socially, but belated congratulations on 400,000 subscribers. You're still someone I consider worth listening to. Thank you so much. Courtney Haynes, $2. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Jean Sebastian with a 20 Mexican dollar super chat. The U.S. did not qualify for the FIFA World Cup. Sad. Yeah, I know that I noticed that, and I could not care less. I don't follow American soccer. I follow the Argentinian men's national team, and just barely, the Argentinian men's national team qualified for the World Cup. So that's good. I completely disagree with the World Cup being held in Russia. I completely disagree with the World Cup being held in Qatar. But I love that Argentinian men's national team. I was born in Argentina, just so people don't think I'm just a bandwagoner jumping on the Leo Messi bandwagon. And I am looking forward to watching the games, although not the politics and corruption of the World Cup. Eric Patterson sent a $10 super chat. How often do you swear? Thinking of Lewis on the bonus shows of the past. I really don't swear that often. In my personal life, I really don't swear that often. And yeah, that's about it. Let me give a couple shout outs to the top donors of all time via Streamlabs. Streamlabs keeps track, something I wish YouTube Super Chat did. Streamlabs keeps track of all contributions forever. And the number one contributor in terms of dollar amount is Eric Patterson with $254 contributed. In second place is Clarth1234. Now you might be saying, David, wait a second. Clarth1234, that's not ringing a bell. That's because Clarth1234 contributes under 5 or 6 at least different handles with $69.69. And Christina in third place with $41 in contributions. Now, in terms of number of contributions, Christina takes the cake with 33 contributions. Clarth1234 in second place with 29 contributions. And then a user going by the name of Natan Pacman, who I can assure you is not really my brother, and Eric Patterson tied in third place for with 7 contributions over the life of the Streamlabs platform. So very, very exciting stuff. And on that note, that's the end of this live stream. Thanks to everybody who joined me. Make a Patreon pledge, patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Let's do it. Let's get to 2,000 patrons.